They won't take, that's not relevant to this position for an answer. They won't take, well, look at my webpage, or I've spoken on this before. They will press until they're able to identify who's pro-life, who's pro-choice. And they do that because they not only they organize, but they make it known to everybody far and wide that they're not going to vote for somebody who won't pass their litmus test. Many times people say, oh, litmus test, that's bad. It's a bad thing to have a litmus test. Well, for a special interest group like this, it's a good thing to have a litmus test. You need to know who's taking what position. So when you get out there and get in public forums and get face-to-face with a candidate at whatever level they're at, ask them the question. Do they support the war on drugs, or do they oppose the war on drugs? And force them to give an answer. And that will make them uncomfortable now. As I say, as the years go by, they will answer more and more forthrightly. But that technique, when the politicians begin to see that there are large numbers of people who are single-issue voters, and the issue is drug legalization, then they will start to react. Because that threatens, remember, there are two things they want: get elected, get reelected. So if they think that there's a large enough group out there who's responding to this issue, they will respond to it. That's my other tip. And the last thing is simply don't give up, because the tide, I think, is moving in your direction. This is not a situation, and it's been done before. If you want heroes, go back and read some history about the people who organized for the constitutional amendment to overthrow alcohol prohibition. What an enormous task that must have seemed like. Remember how popular prohibition was? They had all these states ratifying an amendment to the Constitution specifically outlawing alcohol. And that was massively popular. And the religious leaders were in favor of it. And there were revival meetings, and seemingly everyone wanted drugs for that alcohol prohibition. And yet, about a decade later, the people rose up, essentially, and said, no, this was wrong. We were wrong, politicians were wrong, we have to change the Constitution of the United States. That's a daunting task, changing the Constitution of the United States. They did it. So think about that within a period of about a decade, that you had something that was massively popular become massively unpopular through simply observation and the production of the individuals living in the society. Now, I grant you, they weren't insane. A lot of insane people around now. So you have a lot of work to do. It's cut out for you, but don't give up. Thank you.
How come it took a constitutional amendment to ban alcohol?
Speak up, please. Speak up.
How come it took a constitutional amendment to ban alcohol, but they're able to ban some drugs now without one?
Yeah, great question. Why did it take? The question was, why did it take a constitutional amendment to ban alcohol, but now they're banning all sorts of stuff without the use of a constitutional amendment? And the answer there is that I'm afraid it's my brethren have to take some blame here. Is because the Constitution is not being followed very closely. At least at the prohibitionists at the beginning of the 20th century understood that there was no power in the federal government to ban the possession or use, transport, sale, and manufacture of alcohol. You can read the Constitution from the beginning to the end, and there's nothing in there before that time that says that an otherwise legal substance can be declared to be illegal. So what do? They say, well, I guess we got to follow the Constitution, so let's go amend it. And they organized and did that. Now, people aren't so big on reading the Constitution, and that includes judges. And so the result of it is that through some very loose interpretations of the Commerce Clause and other necessary and proper clause and other loopholes, so to speak, in the Constitution, these type of laws are easily passed without constitutional amendment. Somebody mentioned the FDA earlier. And where's the constitutional warrant for the FDA? It doesn't exist. This is a power in excess of those granted to the federal government under the Constitution. And the 9th and 10th Amendment make that pretty plain. And yet it happened. So we have a constitutional law problem in this country. sort of beyond the scope of what we're here talking about, but it cuts across a lot of issues besides drugs. Yes, ma'am.
I'm not as familiar with this as most of the people in this room, but I believe we've been able to vote on medical marijuana twice in the state, and it passed twice, and then it was overturned. How did that occur?
Well, two things. The first time it was passed in Arizona, the state legislature then passed laws saying, oh, never mind. And the result of that was then another law passed, another initiative saying that the legislature can't monkey with an initiative after it's passed. That's had some pernicious effects also, but in any event, that's what happened to the first one. The second time, the problem is, and other states have run into this too, there's a conflict between federal law and state law. And when you start using words like prescribing, for instance, when you say, oh, you can use marijuana, medical marijuana, as long as you get a doctor's prescription. That's great, except there's a federal law out there saying doctors cannot prescribe class 1 drugs, and if they do, then they're subject to having their licenses pulled. And I know a lot of doctors and they're wonderful people or whatever, but I can hardly blame them from being resistant to writing a script for marijuana and then losing their entire livelihood the next day because their license to practice medicine is pulled. So what we're seeing, what we're going to see, now you see these state laws talking about recommendations as opposed to prescriptions. There's a bigger problem. This is what's going to happen in Oakland too, by the way. It's going to be a big problem. It's the conflict between federal law and state law and the supremacy clause of the Constitution, with Article 6 of the Constitution says federal law trumps state law. This is the same thing that they're arguing about, by coincidence, in federal court this week here in Arizona about SB 1070. They're talking about, wait a minute here, has the federal government preempted this field of immigration so that states cannot force their way into it? That's what they're arguing there. And the same kind of argument is going to happen at some point. It's going to be the U.S. Supreme Court as to whether or not states have the power to legalize when there's federal law making it illegal. That's a cataclysmic legal argument that has not been fully joined yet. It will be one of these days. We'll see that in the next 10 years.